Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear,
business consultant.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.
Welcome. I'm Jay Shear with Jay Shear Business Consulting. We build solid foundations for service-based businesses to grow and scale and achieve the results and success they deserve. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Mahatma Gandhi said, manliness consists not in bluff, bravado, or loneliness. It consists in daring to do the right thing and facing consequences, whether it is in matters social, political, or other. It consists in deeds, not words. On today's episode, we're going to explore conversations around masculinity, men's empowerment, and leadership. Our guest is a husband and father, a mentor, an international men's coach, speaker, best-selling author, TV show host, and podcaster who helps men live a life of greater purpose, meaning, contribution, and fulfillment. Please welcome Michael Lauria. Michael.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for being here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. It's been a long time coming, and you have been a great inspiration to me. So I'm grateful for you, and I'm really looking forward to digging in.
Oh, well, I'm honored. Thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. So I think a great starting point for us would be for you to share with us a bit of a backstory, let's say a thumbnail sketch of your story and what has led you to the work that you're doing today.
So I would say it started, let's say, almost 20 years ago now when my ex-wife and I separated. So we were married for 12 years and we separated, and it wasn't a pleasant separation, as a lot of separations aren't. We had 2 children at the time, and they were only 10 and 6. And so because of the people that we were, I mean, let's put this into perspective. When we're young and we get married very young, and then we stay with someone for a while and we have a couple of kids and we're living a very unconscious life, we aren't always the best quality people. And so that could have been an easy definition for me, not a very good quality human being in many ways. And so her and I co-created this experience after we separated, which was very toxic. And so I didn't, and so as a result of that, I didn't get to see my children for almost 2 years at one point. And you can imagine as a father what that could do to a man, to a parent, not being able to see our children for, at that point it was 18 months. It stretched out to about 2 years, but at that point it was about 18 months. And so I lost any sense of meaning and purpose and connection in life, because my purpose was to be a husband and a father and a provider. And of course, when we separated, I couldn't be a husband anymore, and I couldn't be a father anymore. And I wasn't providing for anybody. I was hardly even providing for myself, because I then, as a result of these experiences, I then spiraled downwards into this pit, if you like, or abyss of depression and anxiety and mental illness. And as a result of that, I lost my job and I couldn't maintain any employment at the time. And that resulted in financial struggle. And as it often does when somebody's living in that way very unconsciously, that then manifested into alcohol addiction, right? So I became, you might say I was addicted to alcohol. So I was an alcoholic for, let's say, close to 3 months there, with antidepressants, on sleeping pills, couldn't sleep, so I get sleeping pills, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, junk food, unemployed. You can just paint a bit of a picture there, right? And so it wasn't pretty. And so then that all accumulated and culminated one day into an experience where I was Sunday morning, 7 a.m., and I was sitting on the edge of my bed with a bottle of wine in one hand and antidepressants and sleeping pills in the other hand. And I was about to take my own life, because I had gotten to a point where it's like, what's the point? This is my life now. And what's the point? And I don't see anything at the end of the tunnel. There's no light at the end of the tunnel for me. That's what I felt. and there was no hope. And I felt like a failure as a husband, a failure as a father, a failure as a human being and a man. And it's like, what's the point? My children, I'm of no good to anyone, let alone myself. And so I was about to take my own life. And then on the bedside table, I had my phone, and it lit up, and it was a text message from my son, who I hadn't had any contact with for about 18 months. So anybody that believes in God, or universal energy, or whatever we want to call it, for me, that was divine intervention, because his text message said, "Dad, we miss you and we love you and we can't wait to see you again."
Oh, wow.
And so I tell you what, Jay,
Mm,
in that moment, tell it, and I challenge anyone to tell me that's not divine intervention, right? No contact for 18 months, and then all of a sudden in that moment. And so that really caused me to take a good look at who I'd become. And there was a little part of me within me that kind of said, you know what? It is highly likely at some point in the future you will see your children again. And is this who you want them to experience? This version of you? And so I got up off my bed and I looked around, and you can imagine, after 3 months of living like that, my house was an absolute mess. I probably hadn't showered either for 2 weeks. So it was it was disgusting, Jay. And so I started doing very simple things. So I made my bed, cleaned my room, had a shower, got changed, cleaned my whole house. That was one day. And then the next day I went out and I went to the real estate agent, because I'd been handed an eviction notice the week before because of everything. And I declared bankruptcy as well a couple of weeks before that. It was just a mess. My life was a
mm.
mess. And so I went into the real estate agency and I said, look, this is what's been happening. This is where I've gotten myself to. I'm trying to put myself back together. I'd really appreciate a couple of months just to do that. And so they were very, very charitable, and they said, yep, cool. We'll give you 60 days to sort yourself out. And I did, Jay. I did. Over the next 60 days, I got myself a job, stopped drinking, cleaned up my act, cleaned up my life, put myself back together again. And then I began this journey of, as I was putting my life back together, I then thought, you know what? I'm sure there's other men out there who are going through something similar, or have gone through something similar, and could use some help. And so after I put my own life back together, I then went out and I started studying a diploma of counseling, because I specifically wanted to help men. And so I did that for 12 months. And then I started holding men's groups and men's circles and doing one on one counseling with men. And, Jay, over the years that evolved into psychology. So I went on and studied psychology and neuroscience and neuropsychology as well. And it's just all evolved into what it is now.
Amazing. What an incredible story of transformation, of heartache,
Mm,
of rediscovery, and tremendous growth and belief in oneself. And we're going to talk a bit more about that because it's an important story. And thank you for sharing it in such a candid and raw way, because you've painted a very clear image in our minds. And there is no question that those that are listening, many can relate to this story and may be in a similar situation today, or have been in a similar situation in the past and have also been able to come through the other side of that.
yeah.
I'd love to go back for a moment because I want to understand what you thought about yourself prior to the point where your life was crumbling. So you're in a marriage, the marriage wasn't falling apart at this point.
Yep. Okay.
What was the story that you were telling yourself about yourself? How did you view yourself? What was the self talk like? How would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself in my, so I got married when I was 21. And so I would describe myself between the ages of 21 and 30, what's that, 33 when we separated. Between those ages, I would say, I would describe myself as an arrogant, egotistical, frustrated, angry young man. And so And so that was all, and there's a whole backstory there, right? But that was as a whole, as a result of living life unconsciously, chasing versions of success that were largely undefined. It was all attached to monetary wealth, societal status, and the acquisition of things, of possessions. Um, and as many people understand, that's a very empty quest because none of those things ever actually make a person happy. None of those things, even money, like people think that when you become financially wealthy, that somehow that's going to fix everything and we're going to be happy. And it's just not the case. I was on a good income. I was earning upwards of 150, $200,000 a year during those years in sales and business development and finance and property. And, and I would say that as a result of my inner state, my external world was, was not at all healthy. So over those years, I gained, how much was that? 50, 50 kilograms. So I'm not sure how much that is in pounds. Maybe you can do a quick calculation, but it's a lot. So 50 kilograms. We should probably do a calculation for people in the US that measure in pounds, but it's huge. So I was obese, right, at that period of time. And this is all, and I was drinking and I was eating unhealthy food, junk food. And so this was all an external manifestation of my internal state, which was anger and frustration and helplessness and hopelessness and a feeling and a really dull ache within. It's like, I know there's more than this. I know there's more than working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., commuting to work an hour and a half each way for money, for success that was undefined, for, and it was one of those lifestyles, a corporate lifestyle where I was at lunches, breakfasts, um, gala balls. It was that kind of a life, right? So it's the kind of life that people look at and go, wow, you've got it good, but they didn't know what was happening within. And so it was 12 years of desperately trying to find some sense of connection with myself and some sense of meaning and purpose in life beyond the superficial.
So, through the transformation that you went through,
Yep.
what would you say was or is the most important aspect of that entire process? If you were able to hone that down to one particular area that's an overarching point, what would it be?
It would be responsibility. That's easy, Jay, because I spent from 21 up until I had this moment on that Sunday morning, I was externalizing everything. So it was somebody else's fault. Everything else was to blame. It was never me. And this is the arrogance that I was talking about during those years, right? It was never me. It was always some other external situation or some other person that was causing these unfortunate and undesirable results in my life, right? That was my perception. And so when we externalize everything, when we externalize responsibility and we bypass that whole process, what we do is we actually disempower ourselves from making change in our lives. And so in that moment when I got that text message from my son, it was then a moment where I was forced to look within. And at that point, I was very, very lonely, Jay. I'd alienated everybody from my life. Nobody wanted to talk with me. I had no friends. My family were getting sick of my complaints. I'll just, and it really just got to a point where it's like there was nobody left to blame. And there was nothing external to me that I could apply fault to in any way. And so there was nowhere else for me to look. I had no other choice but to look at me and to go, you know what, Michael, you're the common denominator in the last 12 or 13 years. There's been all these other people come and go, all these external situations, circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. But really, you're at the center of it all. So maybe you need to look at yourself. And so when I adopted responsibility, Jay, is when my life began to transform. So I would say that anyone who is experiencing undesirable results in life, adopt a sense of 100% responsibility, because then what you do is you empower yourself to change. Because then it's like, well, if I take responsibility, if I adopt responsibility for this particular thing, how can I say I am the creator, or at the very least the co-creator of this experience? And if I've created it unconsciously, then maybe I can recreate it consciously and get a better result here. And then when I started thinking that way, adopting responsibility, empowering myself towards change, everything started to shift and move and ebb and flow around me in ways that created much better results.
That is so huge. What a powerful point to make. And I know that those that are watching and listening right now are allowing that to be received the right way, and hopefully also taking notes, because this is one that becomes, sometimes it's easier to say than to actually do.
Oh,
And matter of fact,
absolutely.
so you can relate. I had
Oh,
two
yes.
conversations this morning with two different individuals around this very topic. And I've openly shared about one of the failures that I experienced and throughout my career when I was removed from a leadership role in a company I was working for. And the very first thing that I did, Michael, is I was pointing fingers in every direction possible
Mhm.
except toward me.
I've heard you tell this story, and you were let go from that position, and then you went to your car, and you were just externalizing, blaming, pointing the finger. Like, we've all done this, Jay. We've all done this, haven't we? We can all point to one event, or maybe more than one. I know I can point to many more than one event in life, in my 20s and early 30s, where I was just pointing fingers, and it was always away from myself.
But
Yeah, so I
and the
get it.
interesting thing, no, no, but the interesting thing about it, and this is a point that you made that is such an important one, is until we recognize that it's us, right?
Mm,
We have to take ownership of that, not look to anyone else, not blame anyone else, but really do the deep work and look
mm,
within. Because until we do that, we can't heal, we can't learn, and we
mhm.
can't grow,
Yep.
which leads to the transformation and the gains that you made, right? And that I made as well. So it does
Mhm.
start with being aware, accepting that responsibility, as you said, and then having the right tools to be able to move yourself forward. And so I want to
Totally.
talk about those tools for a moment, because you mentioned something that resonated with me when you said it, and that was about taking, I'm going to use a different word, but it was incremental steps, right? Almost like baby steps, just
Mm,
taking one step forward and doing something each day, making the
yep,
bed, taking the shower, right?
yep.
Doing the small things. Talk about the importance of that, and what was that process like, the day by day, in changing your beliefs about yourself and the story that you were telling yourself?
Okay, so there's actually psychology behind this, right? So what happens is that when we have this big overwhelming task, or this big overwhelming goal, what we often do is we go, you know what, that's big. I don't know even where to start. And then what we do is we procrastinate ourselves into indecision and inaction, and then we do nothing, and then we continue to get the same results. And so one of the things that I teach is this. It's like, you don't have to do the big thing right now. Sometimes when you're coming from such a deep, dark place, which is where I came from, the smallest thing, and this is where there's psychology around this, the smallest little tiny sense of achievement that you can get from the seemingly most insignificant task, can create this snowball effect that can permeate through all of life. And so I'll give you a real life example from my life. And what that is that when I received that text message from my son, excuse me. And then I looked up and I basically looked in the mirror at myself and realized who I'd become. It's like, all right, well, I need to start putting myself together here. And what's the first thing that I can do? And of course, I looked to the side and my bedroom was a mess. It was just a chaotic mess. And so I did that. And most people would say, well, that's insignificant. And yes, it's an insignificant task to clean your bedroom and make your bed. They're insignificant tasks. So any high performance person will tell you that the very first thing you do when you get up out of bed is you make your bed, because it, from a psychological point of view, it gives you cells of recognition for the experience of achievement, right? And sets your day up for success, if you like. And so, we might talk about our mutual friend James, and he talks about this a lot. Win the day, right? Win the day. And how do you win the day? You start the day powerfully. And so you do little things to give yourself a sense of achievement. And so I made my bed, and then I looked at my bedroom and I thought, wow, hasn't looked like that for a while. And then I extended that out into the lounge room, right? And I did the lounge room, the kitchen, washed dishes that hadn't been washed for 2 months. And so I did that. And all of a sudden, I had a clean house, a tidy house. It smelled nice. It looked good. I went and had a shower. Then I smelled nice and I looked good. And then it's like, wow, look at this. In like 3 hours, look at how far I've come in 3 hours. And then you know what I did, Jay? I had so much confidence in myself. 3 hours before, mind you, I was about to take my own life because I had no confidence in myself. And I had so much confidence in myself, enough to actually walk out the door and go to the supermarket and buy some food, some actual food, right? And so the key here is taking the small incremental steps, forgetting so much about the big goal for now, taking the small thing, the small step, and giving yourself that sense of achievement, that those cells of recognition for the experience of achieving something, no matter how small it might seem.
Yeah. Again, so much power in those very specific actions that you took that stack on top of one another.
Yep.
And the ability to take those actions, the ability to be able to take each and every step forward and do something, right? Just do something. Take one small action
Mm,
and celebrate the wins, as small
absolutely.
as they are,
Yep.
because each and every one of those leads to the next and then
Mhm.
leads to the next. And as you said, you get to the end of the day or 3 hours later and you have a different perspective, right? You're
Yep.
looking at things through a different lens. Now you're looking at what I can do, what I have done, and you're changing a state, right? You're
Oh,
changing a
absolutely.
mindset,
You
and
change your
that's
actual
empowering.
psychology. Yeah, you change your actual psychology by doing that. In in a moment, you know, as you say over there in the US, on a dime, right? You change your state straight away. You change your whole psychology. I'll tell you very quickly what happened after that. Is I went down to the shopping center, and I bought some actual food instead of chips and alcohol. and 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 then I thought, you know what? I actually just don't want to go home yet. I just spent 3 months at home, and I don't want to go home yet. So I went to the coffee shop just across from the supermarket, and I sat there and I just had a coffee, and it was an interesting moment of awareness and awakening for me in that moment. You wouldn't think, like, we all take it for granted. We go to a coffee shop and have a coffee. I don't think we take it for granted anymore, do we? We're grateful
No.
of the fact when we can no when we can go. So I went to a coffee shop and I had a coffee and I sat there and I thought, you know what, 3 or 4 hours ago, I was not going to be here. And I remember having these thoughts, and then I looked around and I thought I would have missed out on all of this whole everything, like life, the world. And I looked around and realized what I'd been doing over the last 3 months and isolating myself, and and being depressed and almost taking my own life. And it was like in that moment I had another awakening. And the awakening was that I nearly missed out on all of this. I nearly missed out on all of this. And what would have happened to my children had I taken my own life? You know? So there's a lot of power in acknowledging the fact that, we go back to responsibility, acknowledging the fact that we are the creator, or at the very least the co-creator of our experience. So we can change our circumstances very quickly if we choose to.
Absolutely. So, Michael, what is something that you believed about yourself early on
Mm.
that you found out wasn't true?
Well, I think like most young men in these early 20s, I believed I was bulletproof, and that I could behave and act in any way that I needed to or wanted to, and that it wasn't my responsibility how other people took that, for instance, if you like, or how I acted and behaved, the things that I said, the way that I showed up, and as long as it was serving me, then that was fine.
Hmm.
And of course, you get taken down a few rungs very quickly on the ladder of ego, um, when you live like that for long enough.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
So, you described for us the story that you were telling yourself about yourself earlier on, right?
Yeah.
Share with us today how you would describe yourself and the story that you tell yourself today about yourself.
Cool. Okay. So like everyone is, I believe that my potential is limitless, and I live like that every single day. Like there's nothing that I can't achieve. Very different to feeling bulletproof. It's a very different thing, right? However, now I live my life with an attitude of service and contribution. Like, how can I help you? And ensuring that my life is so meaningful and purposeful that each and every task that I undertake in my days, each and every way that I choose to behave and show up, and the choices that I make in life are with an attitude of service and contribution, just being of service to other people and contributing to humanity. You know what my mission is: to positively engage the lives of 1 billion men around the world. That's not exactly a self-serving mission, right? So so what I've learned to do over the years is take the focus off myself and think about, how can I serve others? What is it that I'm doing right now that I can serve others? And then how does that relate to, we talked about legacy once, you and I as well.
Mhm.
How does that relate to legacy, and what does that mean that I'm going to leave behind? How am I going to make the world better for the fact that I was here? So these are the stories that I tell myself now. This is what I tell myself now. This is the way that I live my life now. Opposite to who I was. Who I was very, 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 it was all about me. It was all
The
about me. Yeah.
it, it's a beautiful description that you just provided, and it amplifies the point and the message that no matter what your past circumstances were, no matter where you've come from, we can all change. We can
Absolutely.
change our story. We
Mhm.
can change who we want to be and who we can become. And there are ways to do that. And you've demonstrated many of those ways in this conversation. And you're a living example of what is possible. And you're still just scratching the surface, which is the fantastic thing, because we look beyond where we are today
Mhm.
and how much more work is in front of you, how much good work is in front of you, your goal, your mission, as an example, to inspire a billion lives. And you've heard the phrase before that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
So imagine yourself, right? When you are able to contribute the way that you're contributing, you're creating ripples right? Which then connect with others, and then it just begins to multiply. That is what
Mhm.
allows you to be able to have the impact that you'll have to achieve that mission. So I'm curious because you spend a fair amount of time talking about masculinity and men's empowerment and leadership.
Mm.
What does being a man mean to you?
It's a big question, isn't it?
It is.
But look, I would say that being a man means, I'll go back to another part of our conversation where we talked about responsibility. Being a man means adopting the deepest level of responsibility and self accountability possible. That's a part of it. That's the first step. And then going, okay, well, if I'm going to take 100% responsibility for my results, and I understand that my potential is limitless and I was put here for a reason, then what's my purpose for life? What's my ikigai, my reason for being, right? And then I think what it is to be a man is to be the best, to continuously work towards a state of self actualization. And for those who don't know what self actualization is, it is the very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And self actualization is understanding what your potential is and consciously working towards it in each and every moment. And so I would say being a man is no different to being a good quality human being. Whether you're a man or a woman, good quality human being is living a life of purpose, of service, of contribution, ensuring that each and everything that you do has meaning to it, working towards self-actualization, living with integrity, having compassion, developing a sense of inner strength, having the courage to stand for something that you believe in, contributing to others. These are the things that make good quality men.
Thank you for sharing that. So, with all of that said, you've taken this definition that you just shared with us and the qualities that you not only have yourself, but qualities that you also aspire to and teach to others. And you've put that together and culminated that into a program,
Mm.
into a book,
Mhm.
which I know you're also working on a second book. But I wanted to mention Forging
Ah, there it is.
Excalibur. And by the way, thank you very much for sending this.
Oh, my
And
pleasure.
so I've read the book.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so the book is called Forging Excalibur, Rediscover Your Masculinity. So, what I would love for you to do, Michael, is to first share with us what was the inspiration? When did the inspiration hit you to write this book? And share with us what the process was like for you actually sitting down and taking these thoughts and putting them to paper.
I don't often get asked this question, but I love relaying this story because it's very close to my heart. So back in November of 2008, I said to my wife, I think it's time I write a book. At this point, I'd been doing the work that I've been doing for say 17 years almost, right? 17 years. And I said, I think it's time for me to write this book that I've been talking about for years that I want to write. And she said, what is it going to be about? I said, I don't know, but it's going to be a book for men. And so I thought, all right, well, I'm just going to put it out there and see what comes as inspiration. And so my wife and I have this little ritual that we do every on December the 31st every year, and we basically write down things that we wish to accomplish in the next calendar year. It's not a vision board. It's not anything like that. It's more of just and setting intentions about what we want to achieve in the next calendar year. And I put it down and I said, I'm going to write and publish my book by my birthday. My birthday is on the 7th of June. And so, and so she said, wow, that's ambitious. You're only giving yourself 6 months to write, edit, publish, and release it. I said, yeah, I can do it. I know I can. So I sat with it and I procrastinated as we do. And I procrastinated a little bit more. I thought, what am I going to write about? Can I even write a book? Who's going to even read it? and all the things that we tell ourselves. And so then one day in February, so the following February, 2 a.m. in the morning, I sat bolt upright in bed, and I had this vision of a sword and flames and just forging Excalibur. So to backtrack a little bit, I had considered what I was going to write, a book for men, and I wanted to write it um, around knights and the Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur and Excalibur. And I'd already decided this because it's a very cool concept. Everyone loves it. And one of the things that I noticed over the years working with men is that they were very hesitant in putting their hands up and saying, you know what, I'm struggling over here. I need some help. Right. And so I thought I need some kind of a bridge, something really cool that men can connect with that doesn't feel weak. It doesn't feel weak for them to step into personal development and self reflection and self discovery and actually do the work. And I didn't know what that was exactly, but I did know it was going to be around knights and King Arthur and Excalibur and all of that. So 2 a.m. in the morning on I don't remember what date it was in February, but it was February, early February, bolt upright in bed, 2 a.m. in the morning, sword, flames, forging Excalibur. It was all happening. and so, and so I jumped out of bed and I ran down to my office and I had to just get this all up on my whiteboards because it was all just flowing. It was coming through me. And so I put it up there on the board, Forging Excalibur. I thought, okay, cool. This is good. This is the title for the book. I know that. And so what am I going to do with this? And it's like, all right, I know about knights and all the rest of it. And then I started and I stopped and I meditated and I just sat there and I thought, how can I do this? And so I went on Google and I searched, how do you forge a sword? And so I learned very quickly over the next couple of hours how to forge a sword. And there was this whole process around how it's done, right? There's all these metals, all the different metals that coagulate in the forge, and then the fire's lit, and you cast a piece of metal into the fire, into the mixture, and then the fire, and then it's heated and cooled and shaped and crafted, hammered, and all this stuff. And I thought, wow, that's almost like the journey of that a man goes on in life, right? Of how we we encounter adversity, so we're thrust into the fire, and that's adversity, and then we're taken out of the fire, and then we're hammered and we're shaped and we're folded, and all this stuff happens to us, and then we get put aside and cooled, right? And that's almost about us really just learning, hopefully learning from the experience, from the adversity. What did I get from that? What did I learn? Who do I want to become as a result of it? And just as we're just about to cool, we're then thrust back into the fire again. There's another thing that happens in life that we have to deal with. And I said, this is a really good analogy for the path that a man goes on in life. So I took that and I basically listed out the different elements, the process of forging a sword. And then I put a line down the middle. And on the other side, it's like, at what age do we generally go through these sorts of things? And so I did that. And then I thought about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and what does it mean to become a knight? How does a man go from a peasant, or a man just to a knight? What are the virtuous attributes and traits that he has to embody in order to do that? And so then I created the 7 standards of men as a result of thinking about what do you need to become a knight? What did these men have to go through, and what did they have to demonstrate as virtuous attributes and traits and who they were to be knighted? Because it wasn't just something that every man got to do. Not every man got to be a knight. So there was something different and special and unique about these men that became knights. And so that's when I created the 7 standards of men, which you've read about. And it all just came together like that. And I mapped it all out and I did the chapter structure on these 3 big whiteboards that I still have that I'm using for this book as well, and the sequel to Forging Excalibur 2. And I basically then was very, very intentional because by then I had developed very good disciplined practices in my life. So I thought, okay, well, I want to smash this out now. It's all coming through to me. It's all coming through me. And I really want to be intentional about this. So 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., 7 days a week, I sat there and I wrote my book, and it was written in 3 weeks. And then it went off to a publisher. An editor, I should say. And he went through and he just you know, made it flow a little bit better, corrected some of my mistakes, and then sent it back. And he said, I love this, Michael. Good book. I can't wait till it gets out there. And then I published it on the 1st of May, 2019, and it became a bestseller on Amazon. It was on the top of Amazon's top 100 worldwide bestsellers for, I don't know, 3 days, I think, in the self help category, which is a huge category. And it's gone on to sell almost 20,000 copies around the world as a self published book. So,
Outstanding.
yeah, thank you.
Well, congratulations on the entire journey to creating this book and making it available to all of us who are looking to rediscover ourselves, that are looking to improve our station in life, that are looking to be around others who inspire us and help us grow and can show us the path forward and learn from others who have already been down that road before. And this book is, it's filled with fantastic information. It's very descriptive, but it's one of those books that what I love about it is an actionable book, right? So it is a practical book
Mm.
tied to a great story, right? With a lot of visual imagery around it and emotion and feeling behind it, but it is a very practical book. So I would highly encourage everyone to look for a copy of Forging Excalibur. Forging Excalibur. We will certainly put a link to be able to purchase this book in the show notes. And Michael, I wanted to ask you about your coaching business.
Mm.
What is what is the best part about being a coach? What do you enjoy the most?
I enjoy that moment when a man realizes himself at the deepest possible level and understands that he has the power to recreate his life and the results that he's getting in life. So that's, and there's always a moment, there's always that light bulb moment, and I love just sitting on a Zoom call with a man and waiting for that to happen. It happens multiple times during his, process or journey with me, whether it's in a group or one on one. I think that is the thing that really fuels my fire. It really ignites my forge, if you like.
I love that. And then let's take the other side of that coin. What is the most challenging aspect of being a coach and your business in general?
I would say the most challenging thing is for me, because uh, I'm a big vision kind of person. So I can connect with the big vision of positively engaging the lives of 1 billion men around the world. But for me, I'm not good with the detail and the admin and the paperwork and the little mini steps along the way. So I can see this big vision, but then I go, all right, well, I know I need to break this down a little bit. How do I create something, a brand, a movement, or whatever that can have that kind of impact in the world? And so this is when, what I was talking about, Michael in my 20s would never have done this. Michael now, of course, embraces this, and that is understanding that whilst I have limitless potential, as do you, Jay, as does everybody else in the world, I can't be everything all the time. And so what that means is I need to surround myself with people who are better than me at certain things that I'm not as good as I would maybe like to be. And so I've surrounded myself and brought people into the inner circle of Forging Excalibur to help me with the detail and the process and the admin and the graphic creation and the the back end infrastructure stuff that I know is needed to create that kind of impact. So it's a matter of really understanding and connecting with the fact that I need other people on this journey with me. And I've managed to be very fortunate to surround myself with very, very good quality people that are just as passionate about this vision as I am, who are supporting it. And it's not about supporting me, it's supporting the, 1 billion men that we will help over the next however many years that takes. And mind you, we're up to about 6.5 million. So we're on the way, but a long way away.
Beautiful. And how do you measure that?
So that's got to do with men that, so downloads of the podcast, people that, so we can go in the background and have a look at demographics and people, whether they're male or female, that listen to the podcast or watch the TV show, downloads of the book, sales of the book, when I'm on shows like yours, for instance, right? So when that comes out, we basically know that people that listen to business podcasts, right, which is what yours is, are generally more like 60 to 70% men and 30 to 40% women. Might be different in your case, but that's usually the ratio. So I might say that if you have a following, for instance, of 1,000 people, and I'm sure you got more than that, but I'm just using that number, and 60% of them are likely to be male, well, there's 600 men. So
Makes
and we
sense.
know that the conversations that we have are positive, right? So this is how it's measured, and I've have somebody that measures that, and they look at all the analytics in the back end of the website, the podcast, the TV show, the YouTube channel, everything, and we do this on a weekly basis to keep track of it. And also, of course, the men that come into my programs.
Excellent. So, what piece of advice would you share to a business owner who's listening right now, who's experiencing some challenges, and they're experiencing challenges in their life, which is showing up in their business as well? Without getting specific to the issue, is there a
Yep,
general piece of advice that you would pass on to them?
absolutely. I can say from personal experience and with all the people that I help, is that your business is a direct reflection. The quality of your business is a direct reflection on the quality of you as a human being. And when I say that, I don't mean to say that there are good and bad human beings. Let's say the depth of self-awareness that you have and the ability for you to take responsibility and um, how much you're willing to look at around yourself as an individual. And when you're willing to do that, and when you're willing to acknowledge the fact that you are your business and your business is a reflection of your internal state, and you're willing to accept that and acknowledge that, then there's a lot of power that can come as a result of that. And what that really means is that when you do the work on you as an individual, you see immediate results, positive results in your business.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Fantastic piece of wisdom.
Thank you.
So I think it's important to note here for all of the women that are listening right now and watching
Mhm.
that you recently have begun to offer coaching services to women as well.
I have. And I tell you what, Jay, it has been an overwhelming response. Who would have thought that so many women would want to work with someone who's been representing themselves as, almost 2 years now, and much longer on social media as a men's coach. So it was an interesting little experiment because I had a lot of women who were commenting on my post saying, I wish you were working with women. I'd love to work with you. And it's interesting because a lot of the things that I teach men um, are translatable across to women as well, because we're all human beings, right? So the mind works exactly the same way. We have our intricacies, which are different in men and women, but we are all human beings, and the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious mind is exactly the same. We face different challenges in life, but the way the mind works, the human mind, is exactly the same. So I listened and I'm like, all right, well, I'll do a little experiment here and see what kind of interest I get. And so I found, I did a little bit of research online because I'd never thought about, are there female knights? And so I did some research online and I found, yes, there are. There were female knights. The Viking women were called shield maidens, and the female knights were called dames, right? And they did. They put on armor and they brandished swords and they went out there into battle with the men. There weren't many of them, but they were there. And so I went online on Google. I just found a cool photo of a female knight. And so I put that up there and I said, ladies, who would be interested or who would be curious in working with me in a group environment? And do you know, over the next 48 hours, Jay, I had almost 160 interactions on that post. It was crazy. And so now that was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago I did that. And so now I'm putting together a program, an 8-week program for women, which is called, so I've got the Knights Code for men. So this is called the Dames Code. And it will be almost very similar to what I deliver for men, but more, I guess, more, let's say, focused on helping women develop themselves powerfully from a feminine perspective. And yeah, so it's not different. I've worked with women before because I'm also a relationship coach. So I've worked with women in the past, but I was blown away, to be honest. I was blown away by the response, flattered, um, humbled, and blown away.
I think it's fantastic.
So do I.
I saw that post, and it was compelling and it was intriguing. And to see the level of engagement just goes to show how much your message resonates across the board, men or women. It is, it shows that you have the ability to connect, to create transformation. And this is what so many people are looking for today, that are looking for this kind of help, that are looking for ways to improve themselves, that are looking for ways to create a better outcome and a better storyline.
Mm,
And so I think it's fantastic. So
thank you.
I want to ask you, what what message, if you were to boil everything down to one particular message, what would you like that message to be to our audience as a whole?
I would say that that when you're prepared to adopt 100% ultimate responsibility for every result in your life and accept the fact that you have limitless potential, when you're ready to do that, you will absolutely transform your life on every level, because then you're open to be the student of everyone and everything in life. And that's where you can have the most transformation.
Outstanding. So before I ask my final question to you, please share with us, Michael, where we can go to connect with you, to purchase your books. I know you've got the other one coming, and consume your content and be able
Yeah.
to tap into your podcast.
Oh, thank you. So everything is at forgingexcalibur.com. www.forgingexcalibur.com. You can get access to my programs there. You can buy my book either in PDF format or paperback. Um, and and the links to the podcast are there as well. So it's the Forging Excalibur podcast, which is available on iTunes and also Spotify and Podbean. And I think it's also on Google Play, I think. So yeah, so it's all there.
Fantastic. Well, we will make sure that we link to those in the show notes. So here is my final question to you. What is one of the most valuable lessons that you've learned from a client that you didn't expect?
That I didn't expect.
That you didn't
Okay.
expect?
Okay. Cool. So I took on a client maybe a year ago, and I was hesitant in doing so because he didn't appear to be ready for coaching, to actually take responsibility, and he was living life as I did too back in the day, from a place of blame and fault, and just being a victim of everything. And so, but he pleaded with me. He said, please, I've seen some of the results you've got with other people. Can you please? And I said, okay, cool. And so, but I went into it, I'll be honest, I went into it thinking I'll give him my everything, but I have my doubts. And so I would say 3 weeks into our 3-month process, the man just shifted and changed into a different version of himself. and began to really create results in his life that were far beyond anything that I could possibly have hoped for him or expected either. And so what I learned from him was that um, A, around judgment, that was the first thing. And B, that everyone has the capacity to change. You talked about this before, right? So everyone has the capacity to change. No matter how hopeless your situation is, no matter how helpless you feel, no matter how you feel your life has turned out and who you believe you've become, you have the capacity to create anything that you want in life. And so that's what I've learned from that particular man and everybody that I work with. Everyone has the capacity to change their life and design it in a way that they desire.
Powerful. Michael, thank you so very much for joining us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're an inspiration to me. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for our friendship. And I look forward to continuing these conversations, continuing to learn from you, and continuing to grow together. So thank you again.
Oh, likewise, Jay. Thank you so much for having me. I really admire what you do too, and you might not know that you also inspire me. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and for listening. And please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and please leave a review. We would love it if you would share with us maybe one or two key takeaways. That's always helpful. And then to enjoy more episodes and to learn how Jay Shear Business Consulting can help build a solid foundation for your business, just visit jshearbusinessconsulting.com. And until next time, keep learning and growing. Check out Forging Excalibur, and we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear. Jay Shear.
Business consultant.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.